Whoa, 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 let me make sure I have everything first. Sunglasses check, hat check, Pepsi check, vape check, notes check, thick skin check, and sources check. Man, let's go. Welcome back to Golden Blued, everybody. If you're a college football fan, you already know what to do. Hit the like and subscribe button because that's all we do here. Also, go check out our Patreon page. A lot of great perks over there. We have exclusive live shows for the Patreons, discounts off the merchandise store, live streams with college football games, and don't forget about the score prediction contest. Golden Blued is still rolling well past 9,000 subscribers, but we have a goal of 10,000 subscribers by the kickoff of the Backyard Brawl. That is September 1st. I know we can do it, but we can't do it without you hitting the subscribe button. The Pac-12 has been in the limelight of conference realignment in a negative way. They're the ones that have a bullseye on their back right now. It's not looking good. It's not looking like the Pac-12 is going to survive. And whenever I talk about Oregon, I usually lump in Washington with them as well because I do think whatever Oregon decides to do, Washington will be tagging it. That's not any disrespect towards Washington's brand. They have a strong brand. I just think Washington and Oregon fit together. So it looks like that Oregon and Washington might actually have an exit plan to get out of the Pac-12. Now, from what I'm hearing is whenever they were approached about a long-term deal, whenever it comes to the grant of rights for the Pac-12, they're kind of hesitant on that. They don't want to lock themselves in for a long stretch. But what I have heard is that they are open to a short-term deal. I don't know how short that short-term deal is. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. I don't know. I don't think it would go beyond 3 years. I really don't. Because here's what they're really wanting to happen. Oregon and Washington want to be in the Big Ten. That's what they want. When we found out that USC and UCLA were headed to the Big Ten, we also heard that Oregon and Washington also put their application into the Big Ten, but they were turned down because the Big Ten has been trying to work on Notre Dame and Stanford. They want to bring in Notre Dame, and if bringing in Stanford means that's what they have to do to bring in Notre Dame, then they will bring in Stanford. But of course, we all know that Notre Dame has said no. Again, Notre Dame has said no to the Big Ten multiple times. And what we're hearing is Notre Dame is saying no again. They want to stay independent. They want to be in control of their own scheduling. And they want that $75 million a year payout. If they can reach that $75 million a year payout, Notre Dame will stay independent. That's the bottom line. So they turned down Oregon and Washington. But I think that Oregon and Washington still think that they have a landing spot in the Big Ten. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking about this. And this was straight from the lips of Oregon Athletic Director Rob Mullins. He said not interested in a long-term deal, but he emphasized the short-term deal. So they would be okay with the short-term deal, being locked in for maybe a couple more years, 3 more years, something like that. But anything beyond that, we don't want that. We know the Pac-12 is going down. So that tells me that they know that the Pac-12 isn't pursuing conference expansion for other Power 5 teams, specifically the Big 12. And that's what the Pac-12 needs to be focusing right now. Going after a group of 5 teams is not going to help their brand. It's not going to help their value, their TV deal. They need Power 5 teams to replace the losses of USC and UCLA. Those were some massive losses for the Big Ten. So they need to be going after power teams to make up for that loss. So by Oregon and Washington saying, hey, we're interested in the short term, but not the long term, that tells me that they know that the Pac-12 is going down a bad road, a road that they don't want to be a part of. Pac-12 is not going after Power 5 teams. I made a video yesterday about the war between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Right now, it's just a war of words with new Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark saying that the Big 12 is open for business. And then, of course, the Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff saying, we appreciate you announcing that you're open for business, but we haven't decided if we're going to go shopping there or not. Are you kidding me? That was a stupid remark. Of course you need to go shopping in the Big 12. Those are the Power 5 teams that the Pac-12 would most likely have the biggest chance of grabbing. Teams like maybe a Texas Tech, a Kansas State. Oklahoma State would be the jackpot for the Pac-12. If you want to talk about a team that would drastically help the Pac-12 right now, that's doable out of the Big 12, Oklahoma State is that team. They have a great brand right now. They're good in football. They just competed for the Big 12 championship last year, and their academics are stellar. They would add the academic side of this, and the Pac-12 is still holding on to that. That's one thing that they're probably going to have to back off of if they want to remain relevant, because that's something that's holding them down right now. The advantages that the Pac-12 used to have with the academics and the geography are actually the disadvantages that they have now. Now geography is working against them. Now academics is working against them. But Oklahoma State could be a game changer for the Pac-12 if they choose to pursue Oklahoma State and offer them a significant deal. Another factor in all this, as far as the new TV deal for the Pac-12, is the cut percentage. Oregon and Washington want a 16.5% cut of that $245 million, meaning they would get paid right around $44 million apiece. And then Stanford and Cal on a 13.5% cut, meaning they would get $33 million, slightly less than what they were making in the Pac-12, but it's better than nothing. But that means that the rest of the Pac-12, those 6 teams, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State, would make that 6.6%, meaning $16.1 million a year. You might as well go to a Group of 5 conference for that kind of money. I mean, it's still better than Group of 5 money, but if you go to, say, a Mountain West, maybe you could bump up the value of the Mountain West and make 18 to 20 million a year. I'm not sure how the finances would figure into that, but 16.1 million for a Power 5 deal, that's not a lot at all. So Oregon and Washington, it looks like they're trying to squeeze out every last drop of revenue that they can out of the Pac-12 before they leave. But it looks like they are very, very interested in leaving sooner rather than later. They don't want to sign a long-term grant of rights deal, but a short-term grant of rights deal, they're hinting that they're okay with that as long as it's a short term. I would say no further than 3 years. The funny thing about the Big 12 is they're being a little hypocritical right now. Remember last year whenever Oklahoma and Texas announced they're going to the SEC, and the Big 12 is like, man, I can't believe they talked to them behind their back. That's crazy. Well, now the Big 12 is turning around and doing exactly what they got onto the SEC about. The Big 12 is talking to teams out of the Pac-12. Now, whether those teams actually join, I'm not sure. Today was supposed to be the day where we're supposed to hear some announcements. My guess was going to be Arizona and Arizona State, but Utah and Colorado were in the mix as well. So far, I haven't heard anything. So maybe that blows over and nobody joins the Big 12 at all. But I do know that the Big 12 has been talking to Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. And they did try to talk to Oregon and Washington, but it looks like Oregon and Washington have absolutely no interest in joining the Big 12. That would have been a big boost for the Big 12, but I kind of agree with Oregon and Washington on this situation. If you have a chance to make it into the Big 10, then don't settle for less for the Big 12. And that's no offense to the Big 12, but I'm looking at it money-wise. The Big 10 makes way more money than the Big 12, so that makes them better financially. So if you think that you have a solid chance of landing in the Big 10, then yes, you have to turn the Big 12 down. Unless the Big 12 offered them a short-term deal that's worth more than what the Pac-12 is offering. That's one thing that I haven't thought about until this very moment. What if the Big 12 offered Oregon and Washington a short-term deal, knowing, yes, they are going to leave in the future, but hey, they can help us right now. We can have them for 3 or 4 years in the Big 12. That's not a terrible idea. I mean, I know it's not the best idea, but it's not a terrible idea. So maybe something like that could be in the works. But as far as long-term, Oregon and Washington do not want to be in the Big 12. Now, from what I'm hearing, the deal that could be on the table for Oregon, Washington, even Stanford and Cal for the Big 10 is they wouldn't receive the full share of revenue till about year 3 or year 4. Now, yesterday on my live video, I actually said something wrong. Yeah, imagine that. Golden Blue Dude said something wrong. Yesterday, I said that UCLA and USC would receive partial shares starting at 70 million and work their way up to 100 million full share within 3 years. They're actually going to be full members right off the bat. That was a mistake. That was wrong. What I meant to say was Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. The deal for them, from what I'm understanding, if they were to join the Big 10, they wouldn't get a full share till year 4. So it wasn't UCLA and USC. It was Oregon, Washington, and Stanford and Cal. And it would start around 65 million, then the next year 70, and then eventually year 4, year 5 work their way up to 100 million full share. Now, does that mean they're a full member? I'm not sure about that. What I do know is that would give them a seat at the table as far as having a vote, but as far as revenue share, they wouldn't get their full cut till about year 4, year 5. I'm not sure how the grant of rights works in that scenario, but it's almost like a ladder. Hey, keep proving your worth and we'll keep bumping up your pay until you're a full share. So you have to prove that you're going to bring in revenue and that you're worth what you're being paid, which when you think about it is crazy because they're already giving Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland, Rutgers, all these scrub teams full revenue share, and they're terrible. They're not bringing in any money for the Big 10. They are terrible at football. Their brand is horrific, but they're getting a full share because they're already members of the Big 10. This grandfather nonsense is what really gets on my nerves. I understand for your Ohio States, Michigans, Michigan States, Wisconsins, teams like that. I would even throw Iowa, maybe Purdue, they're up and coming. Nebraska, even though they're bad on the field, they do bring in money. That fan base loves Nebraska, so I would actually put Nebraska in there. But those Northwesterns, those Illinois, those Indianas, those Rutgers, those Marylands, they do not deserve a full share. But since they were already part of the Big 10, Ten, they get the full share. Same with Vanderbilt and the SEC. Y'all already know how I feel about Vanderbilt. I'm hoping that the SEC can figure out a way to kick them out. But man, whenever I even mention that, I get tongue lashed. I mean, I get blasted. No, there's no way they're going to do that. Vanderbilt was a founding member. Yes, I understand that. But Vanderbilt is not contributing financially. And I know they help academically. But college athletics is moving beyond academics whenever it comes to revenue producing. This is about making money for the TV networks. That's what they're going to be looking from now on. So if that's the case, then you need to be looking at Vanderbilt and saying, hey, what are you really providing for us whenever it comes to football? Nothing? Okay, you're out. But we will give you a chance. We'll put you on probation. Maybe you can work yourself back in. So the bottom line is I think Oregon and Washington might be interested in a short-term grant of rights deal for the Pac-12, but that's it. And that tells me that they have been talking to the Big Ten and Kevin Warren, and maybe they're saying in the future, yes, we are going to allow you to join the Big Ten, but right now our doors are shut. You're not joining the Big Ten right now. That would make sense. And that would actually fit together as far as signing a short-term grant of rights with the Pac-12. And then in the future, when that's up in 2 or 3 years, then the Big Ten opens their doors and welcomes in Oregon and Washington. I'm not sure about Stanford and Cal. They were lumped into the conversation. I'm mainly focused on Washington and Oregon. So y'all let me know in the comments section, is this a smart move by Oregon and Washington, emphasizing a short-term grant of rights deal instead of a long-term grant of rights deal? And do you think eventually that Oregon and Washington will become members of the Big Ten? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.